Good afternoon. It's still morning. Sorry, it's been a long day. Doctor, talking about generally stippling, stifling, comes if this, I'm holding up the pointer, the back end of the pointer, the thick end, the barrel of the gun here. Do we have agreement with that?
Yes.
If this gun fires a projectile, the first thing that comes out, and I'm not saying in order, but what would show nearness is soot stippling, correct?
Correct.
And then further out would be gunpowder stippling.
Yes, soot and then gunpowder.
Okay, and in the soot stippling, it has to be, generally speaking, as you said, either in contact or within a foot.
Yes, it's within a few inches. It's very close.
Okay, and when you looked at the state's exhibit, you said it was either very close or in contact, and we're talking about the hand wound.
Yes, it could be within that range. Okay. So it could have been in contact.
Okay, and as I said, if this is the barrel of the gun, this is my left hand, the barrel of the gun had to be somewhere in this area, correct?
That's correct.
Now, the soot stippling, and I'm pointing with the pointer to my baby finger, there is no soot stippling here, correct?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Okay. The bulk of it starts between what would be the ring and commonly referred to as middle finger?
Yes.
Okay, so that means the barrel of the gun, if not touching, would have been like this.
It's in that location, that's correct.
So that hand was over the barrel of Mr. Rittenhouse's gun when his hand was shot.
That makes sense.
Okay, and the bullet goes into the fingers and then out through here. And I'm showing the fat part of the in between my index and thumb.
Yes, the exit is to the index finger, but it's on the back of the lateral side of that finger, yes.
And exhibit 105, please. What we just went over, I'm showing you an exhibit, be up on the screen. It's been marked Defense Exhibit 105. You see that photo exhibit?
Yes.
Okay, and that's Mr. Rosenbaum's hand.
His left hand, correct.
Left hand, and you took that photograph, correct?
Yes.
Circle on here to the best of your ability where the soot starts.
Yeah.
Okay, can you draw a line off of there into where it can be seen and then just put your initials? Thank you. And you've put the circle on the ring finger, correct?
Correct.
Leaving the baby finger uncircled and blank, correct?
Correct. I don't see any.
You don't see any soot there, right?
Correct.
Would move exhibit 105 into evidence.
Objection? No. Proceed.
Would ask to publish it to the jury.
Already on the screen. Objection. Okay, go ahead.
Now, you would agree that this shooting of Mr. Rosenbaum, which is captured partially on video, is a dynamic situation, correct?
Correct.
And if the furthest he was away with the stifling that you see in the wounds was 4 feet and closing, that goes very quickly, correct? If someone's running at you?
Yes.
Okay. And 4 feet, correct me if I'm wrong, is about from me to you away.
That's about correct.
And if I had my hands out, I'm even closer, correct?
Yes.
If I'm lunging, and going for your gun, which is an extension away from your body, closer still.
Yes.
And you saw the video that Dr. Jensen reviewed, and he was running, correct?
He was.
The wound in the back, when you talk about, I cannot say that word, anatomically correct position?
Atomic position, yes.
That's, as I'm standing here before you, standing straight, with you said palms forward.
Correct, anatomic position.
Okay.
I think you had me doing it.
Okay. And the wound enters his back,
That's correct.
okay, and goes down and across.
Correct.
Okay, we're not, and I know the prosecution covered it, but we're not saying that he was turned and shot in the back, correct?
That's correct.
There's nothing in the hand shot that shows him, would lead you to believe that his hands are up like this surrendering, correct?
That's correct. I did not see that in the video.
And your theory or your belief to a reasonable degree of medical certainty is that he's in a horizontal position close to my client. The bullet goes in and across and down.
That's correct.
Okay? So, once again, in the position of lunging would put you in a horizontal position, correct?
It would.
And there's some stippling to the wound in the pelvis, correct?
Yes, to the lower abdomen above
Okay,
it.
and that's not trying to, but there, it starts at the belt line and goes up, correct?
That's right.
Okay, and as it starts at the belt line and goes up, the reason it's not below the belt line is because he was wearing pants when he was shot, correct?
Yes, that's right.
And that was gunpowder stippling.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's basically 1 foot to 4 feet.
Yes.
And hate to jump around here, but the wound on Mr. Huber, I'm assuming at some point you pulled off that bandage that was on the wound?
Yes.
Okay. Now, was there stippling on that wound?
There was, yes.
Okay. And that wound was what kind of stippling?
Gunpowder stippling, so that wound has the impacts from the gunpowder particles.
Okay.
A more dense distribution.
Did you look at the clothing around the wound?
On Mr. Huber?
On Mr. Huber?
Yes.
Okay. And the clothing also had gunpowder residue?
A little more difficult to say on the clothing. Mr. Huber's tank top, which was the item of clothing that came with him, that tank top it was a tie-dyed black and gray and white appearance, so made that very difficult. So in those situations, usually I will defer to try to opine if I can't tell for sure.
Okay. So there's nothing in that gunshot wound that suggests that he wasn't in close contact with my client's firearm.
That's right.
Okay. And did you look at any video regarding that shooting?
Yes, it's also included in that video provided.
And the video shows that my client's lying on his back, correct?
Yes,
Mr. Huber grabs the firearm, correct?
it appears so, yes.
Pulls the firearm from one direction towards and into his chest, correct?
They end up in that position. I don't know if he's pulling or what. I don't know what's going on there.
Mr. Huber strikes him with the skateboard. The gun is not in his chest. Fair statement?
That fair statement.
Okay. When he's shot, the skateboard is in his right hand. The gun is now up in his chest.
I would object. These are conclusions based on
I'm asking if his wound is consistent with this scenario.
Go ahead. Finish your question.
Okay. I'll start over. Mr. Huber, you see him hit my client in the head with a skateboard, correct?
Yes.
And
The objection?
These are conclusions that Mr. Huber hit or did anything is central to this case. These are not conclusions that anyone can make but the jury.
He said, the doctor said he watched the video, and so I'm assuming that that's his knowledge base, and you can redirect on the subject if you want.
I'll start again, sir. There is a blow from Mr. Huber to my client's head with a skateboard, correct?
Yes, the skateboard makes contact
Okay.
with Mr.
He swings the skateboard with his right hand into my client's back neck range, correct?
I'm not sure where it makes impact, but
You see an impact.
yeah, it makes contact.
And he reaches down with his left hand, seeming to grab my client's gun, correct?
Yes.
When he puts his hand on the gun, the barrel is not pointing in his chest, correct?
I don't recall, but I don't think so.
Okay. And through whatever movement between my client and Mr. Huber, the gun barrel ends up, which would be right about here,
It does.
okay? And there's a gunshot, correct?
Yes.
And that gun is touching his clothes.
It's in intermediate range. It's
So,
closer.
and define intermediate range for me, please.
Well, again, we've talked about how intermediate range injuries can be within 4 feet, but it obviously from the video it's closer than that. But I can't say whether the muzzle is in contact with
Okay.
his
But
clothing.
through the type of stippling that you have on the Huber wound, you know it's less than 4 feet. Fair statement?
That's a fair statement.
Through independent evidence, which you review as a forensic pathologist / investigator, the video evidence establishes closer.
It does.
And just assume, for the purposes of this question, that the first shot from my client, moving back to Mr. Rosenbaum now, is the 0 shot, number 1. The fourth shot is 76 hundredths of a second after that. That is how fast the 4 shots were fired out of my client's gun. And he's goes from the furthest 4 feet to touching the gun, correct?
Yes.
That calls for speculation.
Doctor answered yes. Overall,
And your opining regarding the order of shots, is that to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty or medical certainty? I apologize.
Medical certainty, as I pointed out, from the autopsy findings alone, you can't put these in order. It's only by reviewing the video and simply looking at the orientation of his body and comparing that to the findings on the body that you can do that. So to that degree of certainty, it appears that he's in that horizontal position.
And Mr. Kraus asked it, the shot to the pelvis, you think is first?
I think that makes the most sense.
Okay. The shot that goes in the scalp, second?
No, I think that the only orientation that makes sense with the trajectory of the gunshot wound to the back and the right side of the head is when he's in more of a horizontal position. So those two injuries must be the third and the fourth injuries. But that's the best I can do.
The head wound goes back to front and from the top of the head down towards the forehead.
That's right.
Okay, so if I was charging like a bull and diving, that would be consistent.
It would be.
I have no